With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas. We say good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to Race 8 of the 2025 PRL Truck Series. Well, it is the penultimate round as we get set for our second road course race of the season. And as always, happy that you have made PRL and RaceSpotTV part of your Wednesday nights. Our producer downstairs, as always, is Dustin Hollis, and alongside Derek Watson, my name is Evan Pasoko, and we are excited to continue to watch this championship battle, which will come in tonight as a tie. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that over the course of this race, Derek, but would be remiss to not start the show with mentioning that this is the penultimate round of this 2025 Season 1 campaign, at least for the moment, the penultimate round for the Precision Racing League Truck Series.
Yeah, it was announced, I think, over the weekend that for now this will be the last season for the PRL. So for everything they do, all 5 nights a week, this will be the last of that for now. But we're at COTA for week 8. We're going to be at Phoenix Raceway for the finale for the trucks next week. So a great place to crown a champion one final time. Let's go ahead and take a look at the points and see who's eligible for that. Right now it's Bradley Holly and Ted Lowendick tied, 256 points apiece. Reese Bogue, 227, Mark Kalin, Richard Regan, 213. That's your top 5. And then Gagnon, Evans, Lane, Kirby, and James Morgan round out your top 10. If we move on to the team points, though, Evan, this one's a bit more of a runaway.
Yeah, and I think a lot of this aided by or hurt by the fact, of course, Richard L. Regan Jr. having that connection issue. 2 poor results in a row for him has taken him out of contention for the team championship, and has also in turn hurt the Regan DeVogue Motorsports group, who earlier on in the season was right there lockstep with the Whataback Racing team towards the top. But no surprise with Holly and Lowendick 1-2 in the driver standings that Whataback Racing group finds themselves with a healthy 120 point margin over the Gold Octopus RBM, who's now in second spot. Even a Miracle Flow Motorsports, an opportunity to maybe finish the season inside of a top 3 spot. Buster Buds Racing Club in 5th, and then it is the Regan DeVogue Developmental Group with Tabula Rasa Esports, DDI Motorsports 44 Ever, and then the Gold Octopus with the RBM Shake and the RBM Bake Group through your top 10. Well, qualifying is underway now. We'll say a big thanks to all of our partners, as always, for making tonight's broadcast coverage possible. It starts with our friends at Logitech G. Logitech G wheel and pedals are equipped with True Force feedback to help you feel the road and own the race. Use code PRECISION at checkout on logitechg.com for 5 to 10% off your purchase. For Advanced Sim Racing, owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members get a 5% discount using code PRECISION5. For Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts to the casual gamer and up to the most meticulous sim racing drivers. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit RaceSpotTV.com and get a 5% discount code using the code PRECISION5. For the Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products offer an incredibly immersive addition to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. For Moradness. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For Mr. Hedge Sim Racing Photography. At Mr. Hedge, capture your finest, proudest, or even worst moments from your favorite hobby at up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. And by Advanced Motorsports. Get ready to learn to be fast with Advanced Motorsports. Follow them on their socials to become a better driver. So big thanks to all of those partners, Derek, for bringing tonight's coverage to you. And this is something we were talking about before we went on the air. There is a lot of dense fog right here in the Lone Star State as these trucks are out there for a 10-minute single truck qualifying session.
Yeah, we'll see if this fog can kind of lift and move on. You see just kind of the hints of the fog as we come around the track here. We're watching one of the trucks run through qualifying. This is going to be Nick Hunter here, I believe, on the track. And this is, of course, a new layout, Evan. You know, a lot of unknown, not a lot of practice for these drivers because the official, you know, the NASCAR iRacing C Fixed series does not race here this week, so a lot of drivers did not get those practice races in. I think there's going to be a lot of unknown in this race. A lot of drivers having to kind of figure it out live. We've had practice open for a while, but I think a lot of drivers will be caught off guard by this new layout.
It is going to be a bit of a difference as we cut the track down to a 17-turn configuration. It does increase the lap times, but of course with the timed race on deck here tonight, doesn't make tonight's contest any longer. Just means the laps that we're going to see completed will be a little bit shorter. Right now, Lowendick, the top driver in the qualifying session. You're taking a live look in at Nicholas Hunter. One other thing that comes out of a crazy race at Modern Atlanta that we saw just a week ago is also the fact that, Derek, a lot of drivers will not have the opportunity to qualify for this race. I think that in a race where track position maybe means the least amount, because there's going to be, I think, a bigger variance between the fastest truck in the field and the slowest truck in the field. I think if you've got speed, you're going to have plenty of time in this race to make it known. So maybe for those drivers, better to get that penalty out of the way here at COTA, hope for a clean race, and then not have any grid penalties come Phoenix. But you will see some big names towards the back, and we'll cover that when we get to the grid.
Yeah, it's twofold. You're right, because skill level at a road course is always very obvious who is and who is not a great road course racer, and you can really work your way through a field if you're good at this. However, if you're at the back of the field and you're fighting for a title, as Richard Regan and Bradley Holly are, especially Bradley Holly, the concern you have is being stuck behind the drivers who maybe aren't as skilled and making sure they don't, you know, loop it around, wreck themselves, wreck you, or cause some incident that can really be pretty massive. Here's Reese Bogue. He's currently third in the points. 137.928 is his best time. He's up second on the board. That's about 5 seconds faster than Nicholas Hunter. So you can, as Evan said, you can see the skill gap right there in those lap times. I mean, up and down the board is 137s, 138s, 139s. It varies pretty quickly here as qualifying is wrapping up.
Yeah, in Atlanta just a week ago, we were talking about hundredths of a second. We're talking full seconds of a gap here at COTA, but things were tight at the front of the field. So as qualifying draws to a close, let's go and take a look at your starting grid, and Ted Lowendick will hang on to the pole position. The driver who enters tonight in a tie for the championship lead will bring us to the green flag tonight. He's alongside Reese Bogue in the Bogue Motorsports number 4. On row number 2, it is the number 5 Regan Bogue Motorsports entry of Nathan Deering starting in 3rd. And in 4th position, the number 14 Regan Bogue developmental car, that is Matt Gagnon. And back on row 3, P5 starter tonight, it is the number 17 of Daniel Knight. He starts alongside the Rapid Theft Racing number 24 of Andrew J. Sharp.
Moving back into P7, Jeff Evans, part of Miracle Flow Motorsports and number 51 machine. But next to Nicholas Schwartz, 171, his teammate in Miracle Flow Motorsports. Back in P9 to 16 of Dustin and Bumgarner, part of Regan Vogue Developmental. And then Buster's Buds Racing Club, number 62 of Mark Kalin in P10. Then Thomas Sink, part of Grinds Racing, is next to Jacob Dunn, part of Tabita Rossi Esports.
13 starting spot. It is the Miracle Flow Motorsports 41 of Doug Evans. He's alongside the Motovac Racing number 60 of Colton Lane. Back on row 8, it is the Tabula Rasa Esports 84 of James Morgan and the Rod and Shotgun Motorsports 71 of Stacy Hunter. And on row 9, it is the Grinds Racing number 19 of Nick Hunter, and to the outside, the DDI Motorsports Vortex 05. That is Tom Massey.
And that's everyone who turned a time here, Evan. So let's talk about the drivers who did not turn a time that are not allowed to qualify. So let's run through, I guess, both lists here. So we look at the grid here. P19, Richard Regan Jr. not allowed to qualify. Bradley Holly in P20 not allowed to qualify. Dalton Geyer, Zach Panzarella not allowed to qualify. Mike Toomer Jr., Steve Loving, Kyle Dewey, Brett Adams, Sam Smeltzer, Patrick Calgill, Austin Hunter, and Alex Hillman. 30 trucks at COTA. A bunch of them not allowed to qualify.
So it's going to be interesting to see the speed that those drivers have. Just looking back at some of those names, obviously Richard L. Regan Jr., that name jumps out. But Bradley Holly, the big one, right? He and Ted Lowendick coming in tonight tied for the lead in the championship. Lowendick gets the start from pole. Bradley Holly was the second best truck in the practice session earlier today, but being down in P20, that is going to be the gap to watch. One championship leader on pole, the other one without a time in qualifying, and starting to the outside of row number 10 in the number 20 position. Field paces through the second half of the track. They were parked on the racetrack just short of where they cut out the full-length part of this racetrack, cut through what is essentially an infield area to get down to this back half of the racetrack. Right now, right-hander turn number 14. Final couple of S's. Very technical section down here. Maybe not quite as much as it is through the S's, but plenty of passing opportunities here with a lot of right-handers and left-handers back and forth. Maybe not necessarily heavy braking zones. One thing we did want to know was that fog going to stick around post-Q. Derek, looks like it does.
Yep, looks that way. It's now 1:08 p.m. virtual sim time on the 1st of March. Overcast sky, 73 degrees Fahrenheit is the temperature. So should be some grip in the track. That's the good news for these drivers as we come around here. Well, Evan, what's ahead here? We're going to take the green flag in a moment. And that turn 1, that's elbows out racing. We see it every time we come here in COTA, both in sim and in real life. Who survives turn 1 may help determine who survives this race.
2 races to go in the season as they come to the start-finish line looking for the green flag on the run up the hill to turn number 1. Let's go racing in Austin. Beating and banging, center of the pack, cars all over the place. You're going to have to watch those track limits to not go too far on the exit. We'll be following that all night, but up front it is the number 4 of Reese Bogue who makes the pass for the race lead, although maybe a connection issue for Bogue. We'll keep an eye on that, as it looks like that truck back on the racetrack right now. Nice pass for the truck who started in P2.
This right here, this turn now making now TV right, or actually a left-hander. This is that shortened part of the track. That's where we make the cut here. Cut out a bunch of long straightaways. This will be turn 10. This is where we started the pace lap here. So this is how quick this new layout is, Evan. About a minute 38, minute 39. And you see here, Lowendick is trying to run down Reese Bogue. Now remember, Ted Lowendick started into PRL, Evan, as a road course racer. He's only been into ovals for maybe a year and a half now. So if there was one person I wouldn't want trying to run me down for the lead, it'd probably be Ted Lowendick.
Yeah, that is a fierce competitor who's lined up in the number 2 spot. There's the look off of the back end of the leader, and you can see Lowendick watching. Jumping back a little bit further in the field, that is the number 184, Bradley Holly, who is trying to make that move to get through the track and try to catch up to the race leaders. He started back in the number 20 spot, the 184, trying to make some progress right now in the number 11 spot. So that's a big chunk taken out in just the first trip around this racetrack is one thing you don't have to worry about in these road course races. Of course, there's cautions, the unpredictability. Drivers have a pretty set idea of what they want to do strategy-wise, and you see the clock ticking down from 58 minutes. That should be about 37 more laps, so gives the drivers a good idea of how much maybe pacing they need to do fuel-wise, how much tire conservation they need to do. And to your point again, here through the S's, where they would normally continue off through the S's right here, right-hand apart, turn number 5, they'd then make that long run down towards a really heavy braking zone and good passing opportunity. You don't get it. You got this little bit of an S here. They try to cut that pretty straight, but then when you run the full circuit, Derek, this corner right here is a big braking zone, big passing opportunity as one truck up the road missed the break point. That was Kyle Dewey. He's, I think, not for position, so he was getting out of the way. But that's normally a really big braking zone or really good passing opportunity. I don't know if it's as enticing of a chance on this layout as it is on the full.
Yeah, I don't know where I think the big passing opportunities are going to be in this track, Evan, as we see now a pass being made on the inside. That's with Patrick Cowgill trying to get to the inside of Jeff Evans. It does make the pass here, but short of probably the front straight into turn 1, you know, it's hard to think about who's going to be able to get a run here and who's going to be able to make anything happen. I mean, if you're great at cornering, you'll probably make up some time here and there, but compared to the full version of COTA, watch Kyle Dewey again here as we're talking. He's just going to pull off. I think he might, I don't know if he's just not having fun or I don't know, but he just went ahead. Maybe want to get out of the way of the leaders, I think, actually, Evan. But compared to the long version of COTA, where there's multiple long straightaways with big braking points to pass someone, I don't know how you're going to pass someone here effectively short of maybe, you know, doing the old NASCAR short course style pass of having to kind of rub the bumper a little bit.
It's an onboard look with the driver who is chasing down Mark Kalin. That's Bradley Holly again, still in the 184 machine, trying to make his way through the traffic. He went from 20th to 11th quick. Now trouble in turn number 1. That's that 23 truck who's gone around. So issues there for Brett Adams. Field's going to be able to get by. And now the 19. You see that second look, kind of a track blocker there. And it was a late spin as Adams came onto the scene late. But got turned around and all of that one. Doesn't look like anybody gets any major damage. We'll continue on through. But certainly some drivers going to lose some time. And now problems. That's the 2 with Dalton Geyer, who has a spin. And as he gets righted, he'll pass another truck who spun. That was the yellow 19 and Nick Hunter, who was off of the racetrack just in front of him.
Well, this is already getting to be kind of busy as far as the off tracks and the spins. And I think, you know, just proving how difficult this track is. Watch Nick Hunter here. He's going to try to make the left-hander. And just got it loose. And I think it's worth saying, by the way, Evan, of the top 3 NASCAR vehicles modeled in iRacing, that being the trucks, the current Xfinity models, and the Gen 7s or the next gens, as you want to call them, in my opinion, these trucks are the hardest to run on a road course. It just feels like they don't like to be stable on a road course. They want to loop around. There's a lot of throttle management that goes into racing this truck at any road course. And of course, the more corners you have, it just feels like it gets more and more difficult as time goes on. Well, here we are again, still watching Reese Bogue lead them around, leading Lowendick, Deering, Gagnon, and Daniel Knight. And whether it be developmental or actually the RBM team proper, right now they contain 3 of the top 5 spaces.
Yeah, they're having a good showing right now. And again, Bogue's still reaping the benefits of the good start that he had in this race to take over the race lead. No other spots exchanged hands inside of the top 5. So Bogue the leader, second truck in line, that's Lowendick. Nathan Deering is the blue and black number 5 just up the road. And you're on board there with Matt Gagnon, rocking the old school racing goggles behind the wheel, the number 14 machine. All those trucks behind him. Deering started 3rd, he's 3rd. Gagnon started 4th, he's 4th. Same with Daniel Knight behind him. The only swap happened from that very top position. And there's not a ton of movers inside of the leaders. I mean, Nick Schwartz went 8th to 6th. That's a bit of a pickup, but until you get down to Richard Regan and Bradley Holly up 11 and 10 spots respectively, not a lot of movement has happened inside of the top 10. Doesn't mean they're not close together, though. Here's the battle for P7, and that is the aforementioned Regan trying to make some moves in the 56.
Yeah, did a great job sort of pressuring Jeff Evans, just trying to make his presence felt. And of course, Rich Regan had a couple of bad weeks, had the internet go out, and not having a great end of a season. But I'd say he's 5th in points. He's kind of far out, but if he has a great run today and something were to maybe fall his way, he could still maybe be in the picture for the finale race next week in Phoenix. Of course, it's worth mentioning, by the way, the PRL does give every driver 1 drop week. Richard used that when he went off and watched the real life Daytona 24, but you cannot drop finale week. So going into the finale week, we will know what the points are, and it's purely just going to be based on who runs better next week. And boy, Richard Regan briefly got the truck in there, Evan. I thought maybe he was going to make something bad happen, but he backed out and decided to live another day.
And there is plenty of opportunities. There is plenty of time. Again, without that risk of a yellow here, a yellow there, a strategy flipped on its head, I think it does afford drivers a little bit more liberty to maybe not force the issue, knowing that they're going to have opportunities. Now, in the case of Ted Lowendick, he's starting to get aggressive, and that's because he has pressure from behind. If he feels like that 5 of Deering, maybe even the 14 of Gagnon, have a chance to make a move on him soon, he's going to want to pass Bogue ASAP, put some separation between him and those 3 trucks behind him. Look how pretty close those top 5, even top 4 trucks are lined up compared to how much this field has spread out. The last time by, your top 4 all separated by only 1.3 seconds, and an equally tight group back there in the battle for the number 7 spot with Evans, Regan, Bumgarner, and Hawley.
Yeah, you see battles all across the track. That's something I love about this new layout of COTA a little bit, Evan, is that with how much tighter it is, yes, it's 17 corners, but the layout's so much shorter. There's going to be battles everywhere across this track. It may not all be a battle for the lead, whether it be a battle for 1st, for 10th, for 20th, or what have you. There's always going to be something going on. This is Zach Panzarella in the middle of your screen. Got a little off track. Oh, that was the 31 sort of parked there sideways. He just clobbered right into Patrick Cowgill, and then they're both going to keep on moving. I think it's worth mentioning that we're already seeing a lot of off-tracks, a lot of incidents here, Evan. There's Cowgill. Here he is off track, got it turned sideways, and just sort of tried to keep moving. You can debate whether that was the right move or not, but try to keep the truck moving. But it's worth mentioning this league does have an incident count. So an incident in iRacing is determined either by going off track or by colliding with another vehicle. 24 incident points will get you DQ'd from this race. And I suspect, based upon the number of off tracks we're seeing already, that may become a story later.
You have all the tracks. This one is pretty notorious for very strict track limits as Dustin Bumgarner locks up the right front tire. He's down on the inside as that was Bradley Hawley trying to go around the long way. Nice defense from Bumgarner. He'll hang on to P9. You go on board with that purple 184 Miracle Flow machine as Bradley Hawley wants to continue his march through the field. He walked up to this P10 spot, I'm not going to say unobstructed, but pretty easily in the opening 2 laps of this race. And then he hit a stone wall at Bumgarner, but a bit of bubble there. The 16 car loose. To the inside goes Hawley, and in turn number 17 through is the 184. And to make it a P9 spot for Hawley, the highest he has been so far tonight.
Yeah, we talk about Hawley having the most number of wins ever in Oval in PRL. He has a great number of wins on the road course as well. My concern for Hawley tonight was not that he didn't have the skill to get up front, Evan. My concern for him in that starting back where he did was going to be, based purely upon the what ifs. What if there had been a big accident on the first lap? He would have had nowhere to go, but that didn't happen. He is quickly just kind of cruising his way through the field. There you see him right there getting ready to make that turn right behind Jeff Evans. Doing a pretty solid job here in that 184 machine. So again, 17 corners. I'm impressed and shocked by how much faster this course is in field. I mean, we're doing lap times in the 139s right now, Evan.
Yeah, pretty good lap times that you're looking at there amongst those leaders as we continue to watch this battle for 8th and 9th position. Very first laps, right? Fresh tires, start of the race right there in the high 139s, so not seeing a ton of fall off, but a second or so. We'll continue to watch that as this race goes on. That's a good look off of the back of Evans. That 184 is going to get to the inside of him, goes a little bit too wide there. This will flip back, though. If the 51 can stay there, he'd have the inside for the next corner, but the damage was done. Make it another spot in the bank for Mr. Bradley Hawley. He is all the way up to the number 8 position.
Yeah, and Brad, of course, feels the pressure to race here. Remember, we're only 12 minutes in, and Brad is up 12 spots, the same as Richard Regan Jr., the truck ahead of him. But Brad feels the pressure to race hard here, Evan, because, again, he came into tonight tied with Ted Lowendick in points. And Ted right now is second. Bradley is eighth. So Brad feels that need to get up front, at least be competitive tonight, so that he has a shot to win what's possibly the final PRL truck title next week in Phoenix.
With Dalton Geyer in the 2 truck, a little bit loose on his own. That puts that truck sideways, spins off the track. It's been a bit of a rough go for Dalton Geyer, who currently runs back in the number 23 spot. Not having a great time out there. I am surprised. You know, I did mention, yeah, you cut this racetrack down in size as we jump back to the battle for P17. You do lose some of those heavy braking zones and conventional passing opportunities. I don't think that has taken away, though, all of the excitement. If anything, it kind of makes this thing race like a short track version of a road course, right? There's not a lot of high speed areas, maybe with the exception of that run on the front straightaway. There's just always a turn coming up. I don't know if they're ever getting to top speed at any single point, which means that there's always somebody looking left, looking right. There's competitive cars all over the racetrack. Look at the dive to the inside there. Austin Hunter's going to go through, and looks like Alex Hillman follows suit. So that's going to be a -2 for Stacy Hunter in that corner, as going the wrong way is the 71.
Watching this course kind of go by and watching not just the lap times, but just how it feels like everyone's kind of connected together, and how there's this multiple points of action and multiple corners and not big straightaways. And I was thinking in my head, do you feel like a fair comparison to this road course layout would be like racing at Mid-Ohio?
I think that's a fair comparison, right? There are some other places, you know, the Road Americas, the big tracks with the long straights, which are very compelling, but a lot of the passing that happens at those places, maybe even, you know, this track in its full circuit, are dependent on long straights, heavy braking zones, and kind of conflict corners. Whereas here, I think all of the corners kind of have equal opportunities. There's not one obvious place to pass, so it keeps drivers on their toes. Certainly, they like the angle of this corner here. That battle not for position, but the fact that that turn is, what, nearly 270 degrees with how tight that thing is, then that's an opportunity for drivers to make moves there still. But it's a tricky track. I mean, look at that. The self-spin for the 31, that's going up the hill into turn 1. I have seen more replays of trucks spinning on their own accord than from them getting into each other.
Yeah, and that's why I was drawing a comparison to Mid-Ohio. Is this, you know, there's no big straightaways, a lot of action, lots of self-spins, lots of off-tracks available. You know, some other more classic road courses would come to mind, such as the Lime Rock Park, but I think Mid-Ohio would be the other, you know, quote-unquote NASCAR track I would think of in this moment. Here's Bradley Holly. We're on board with him, and that's going to be the 171 of Nicholas Schwartz. He's now going to pass on by, and that's going to put him up to P7 on the racetrack. Come down here into this long straight. This is uphill. This is into turn 1. This is oftentimes in restarts or restarts the race, Evan. This is the action point. This is the elbows out. Everyone's kind of beating and banging restart point. Once we get spread out, yeah, it's just another corner. But that uphill, you know, to the right is a very, very difficult corner. And I think Patrick Calgo proved that a moment ago. It's just hard to get checked up there and not spin that truck around.
Yeah, and the truck also, you know, acts so weird in that corner with the elevation change that it can catch you off guard. Even if, you know, you're 10 laps into the race, it might feel different than it has at any other point. And, you know, goes to show, you know, this race and a challenge of the road race. We talked about this too a little bit earlier on this year in Chicago, right, where we were really stressing in that race, hey, it's a street course, there's no runoffs, any mistakes going to put you in the fence. Here you have all the runoff space in the world. That may be this track's only detriment. It's all paved, it's all everywhere. Of course, iRacing going to police very tightly with those off-track penalties. And we already mentioned, you get too many of those, you could see yourself removed from the race and reliant on points for the final couple of finishing positions. But, you know, what we're seeing out of these races is that you figure 17 corners. If that's the number we want to go with, there's some debate to that. And we said, what, it was about 38 different laps based on the clock is what iRacing thinks we're going to do. That is 646 corners. Oval racing is incredibly difficult for those who, maybe haven't done it and only do road to course racing disciplines. I think it's easy to overlook the challenge of the oval races, Derek. But I will say that one turn on a road course independently has more opportunities to make a mistake, I would think, than on the oval. On the oval,
Yeah.
turns 1 and 2 are, I would consider them one corner, where your entry, your exit are tied together. It's critical. So you're looking at a race here where the math would give you 646 different turns and 646 different opportunities to make a mistake.
Oh, I agree for the most part. The road course corners are harder than oval corners. I would then come back and counter, though, what that means is in the ovals, though, the value of hitting the correct line, whether it be down on the apex in the bottom of the corner, or knowing the line of an oval, is at times as or more valuable than a road course corner, because you only get a couple corners to set up the next straightaway on an oval. So both have their challenges, and I think both disciplines of iRacing both kind of undervalue the difficulty of the other and the challenge of the others. Boy, I mean, speaking of challenges, Ted Lowendick is still all over the back end of Reese Bogue here, but you're right, there's so many chances here. But then you could also argue with 646 corners, there's way more corners to make up time than there is at an oval. Because you're right, most ovals are very laid out. 1 and 2 is a corner, 3 and 4 is a corner, minus Pocono or a couple other tracks. Those corners are not distinct in their numbering. So definitely some differences between the two. And I think also just the braking points is the biggest challenge in these NASCAR vehicles for a road course, Evan. I always say that, most NASCAR fans or most oval drivers who don't like oval race or don't like, doing road course racing, they don't like it because you do it in, man, look at that fog. You do it in a NASCAR vehicle, and these are the hardest vehicles to road course race in. Comparatively, take the same track layout and go race a GT3, go race an LMP2, heck, go race an MX5, and it would be so much easier than racing one of these NASCAR trucks around this facility.
Yeah, and unlike the current era NASCAR Next Gen Cup car, which part of its redesign was arguably to make it race better on some of these road courses, I would have said that maybe the hardest vehicle to drive on a road course would be the Cup car. New iteration, a little bit easier, but these trucks and Xfinity cars that remain are not designed for this. The brakes aren't made for this. The weight is not made for this. And that is what adds that much more difficulty to driving these cars around. So, yeah, if you put these things out there against an open-wheel car, they may look lethargic, but you have to feather the throttle. Every move has to be deliberate, and you can't just gas on, gas off. Everything is a delicate balance. As that 56 of Reagan tried to make the pass on Daniel Knight there for P5, wasn't able to do it. Now trying to squeeze in to the inside. We're going to switch back to the left hand. Turn number 17, and in 17, it is a mistake for the 1-7. Off of 16 is where he missed it. Now into 17, it'll be 2 spots lost for Daniel Knight. And for the first time today, Richard Regan into a top 5 spot with Bradley Holly following him through.
Yeah, Richard Regan, by the way, with Zachary Williams up in the spotter stand, kind of helping coach him through and keeping him advised of what's going on. Let's watch this again here. And nothing happened. This Knight just missed the braking point. Just got the off track and what have you. So there you go, as you said, Richard Regan up into the top 5. By the way, of note, 4 drivers have called it a night here. That'd be Kyle Dewey, Patrick Cowgill, Andrew Sharp, and Steve Loving have already went ahead and parked their trucks for the evening. So we're already down 4 trucks here with about 20 minutes into this race here. And as far as I can tell, Evan, none of those are DQs. I think those are all just drivers who maybe just went ahead and parked it for the night and just kind of happy where they finished, so to speak, in this moment.
We know there's going to be some level of attrition. You heard some kind of candid answers when we were talking to the drivers post-race too just a week ago on, if they don't enjoy this style of racing or they don't feel like they excel in this kind of racing, that they're just kind of hoping for a good points night. And that's where, I think the likes of the Smeltzers, the Hunters, the Adams of the world, right? All those trucks kind of around P20, They know they don't have RaceSpoT pace. They're not fooling themselves thinking they're going to win this thing. They're just out here to hope that other drivers drop out and that they pick up points and get a decent point showing. You saw the bit of a bobble there up the road. That was a second look at the pass that allowed the number 16 machine to go through initially. And that 16 of Mark Kalin crossed it right back over as the battle between he and Bumgarner continues to rage on. That one is for 10th and 11th on the racetrack. As we jump back in to the battle for the race lead, it is still only a truck length here or there for all positions inside of the top 4.
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe at this point, I think it's something we don't talk a lot about in our broadcast, but we talk a lot about in the other broadcasts of the PRL, Evan. I wonder if the overcut-undercut method of pitting is going to determine maybe who wins this race, right? I mean, it was kind of pointed out to us earlier. You can go about 31 laps on the tank of fuel. Watch Nick Hunter, and I'll come back to that. He just lost his back end like a Ford GT3 right there. Sorry, that kind of broke my train of thought, Evan. I have not seen okay.
Weight savings, I talked about how these trucks are heavy, and it's not necessarily this type of racing is not what they're designed for, but yeah, the back is gone, so it's somewhere on the racetrack.
Yeah. So I was going to say about undercuts and overcuts. We know these trucks can go about 30, maybe 31 laps on a tank of fuel, so almost a full race, which means you wouldn't need a very long pit stop if you wanted to go gas only. However, you know, a lot of drivers complained about tire fall off when I was talking to some of them earlier as far as the fall off, and you can see it in the lap times, by the way. I mean, we're already now running 140s, getting close to 141s for some drivers. That's about a second and a half faster, or slower, pardon me, than where we were. So if you're Ted Lomadick, I wonder if maybe trying to pit first and get clean air over RaceSpotTV is how that pass is going to be made to win this race.
And you have to think that any sort of undercut, overcut, whatever have you, because those trucks are all so close, the gap between coming out as the leader, coming out in second, third, fourth, may not even be decided by the strategy in and of itself, right? The decision to pit first or the decision to pit last, but that's a tight enough gap where I could foresee the difference being how quickly you get on pit road, get into your stall, get out of your stall, get off the pit road. I mean, that delta alone, which will always give some drivers better pit stops and others slower ones, even if they take the same service, they're so close that in and of itself could be a deciding factor in the way this one plays out. And I hope that those top 4 stay as close as they are running all the way through to the end of this race, when those pit stops will have to happen. You're on board as this battle for the number 8 spot continues. That's Mark Kalin's perspective from P10 as we close in on halfway home in this 60-minute timed event.
You know, you say that out loud, the 60-minute timed event, and I thought to myself, this is the one time when a lot of drivers are probably pretty happy about the timed format versus the laps, because you know what's ahead of you. And that's a very common thing to do, timed laps and timed events, I should say, in a road course race. Let's go back here and watch this truck here. See what's going to happen in this replay. Buddy. Oh, he did get around the 11. I thought the 11 was going to be safe, but nope. Alex Hillman kind of looped around afterwards. That's probably, Evan, just a casualty of being on the throttle too hard. You talked about it earlier. Typically in these trucks, if you get anything more than kind of like half throttle, or if you mash that throttle, I should say, it revs up so fast and it just sort of loops this truck around. You have to be very, very gentle with the gas pedal here. And I think the old analogy that someone always teaches you is pretend there's an egg under your throttle. I thought to myself, maybe with the price of eggs, maybe not eggs anymore. Maybe we need something better, like a ping pong ball or something. You crack an egg and that's going to be worse. But here we go. See that, again, that new chicane we're taking out of the S's. We're making now what's going to be a driver left-hand turn. Looking on board with Dustin Bumgarner here. And he's going to get ready to come here through 9 and 10. This will be the big left-hander. Comes into a big right-hander for turn 11 and 12. And here's 13. Then, Evan, I don't know if you ever thought about this way. This next corner that comes up for these guys, this big sweeping right-hander, I've always thought of it more like a freeway off-ramp, how it just kind of keeps going right. It's like you're taking that big right-hander there, and then you come back around here, turn 16 and 17, or back up the hill already. Here we go. That's that big right-hander. This kind of goes on forever like a freeway off-ramp. That's how I've always described it to people.
I will say, in defense of this racetrack, it looked like the turn radius stayed the same through that corner, right? He kind of found his spot and held the wheel. I don't know if I've ever met a freeway off-ramp where I can just hold the wheel straight around the whole curve. Seems like the turn radius changes 4 times in 400 feet. Obviously, you got a little bit more real estate here, so he kind of picks his spot, holds it through, and you can see again with that tape on the wheel where he runs. Matt Gagnon maybe a little bit off pace. He had been that 4th truck amongst the battle for the race lead. He had dropped the back a little bit compared to the race leaders. He was 2 seconds back at the stripe, but you look at the gap now, I mean, he lost a significant amount of time. So curious what his lap time will clock in as this time by the start-finish line. Matt had been putting in pretty consistent 140s. It was a 140.6 and a 140.2 in his last 2 trips around. Let's see what the time is for him when he comes back, and we'll kind of get the indication that maybe he was having a connection issue, decided to give himself some space to the leaders, as the leaders now dealing with some lap trucks really for the first time tonight. That was Mike Toomer Jr.'s 42 going a lap down. He'll also go wide and yield to Gagnon.
But I wonder, I don't know if Gagnon is slower, Evan. I think the leaders got a little faster. I said earlier the leaders were now doing 140s. Last time by, the top 3, Bogue, Lowendick, and Deering all clocked in back in the 139. So I'm not sure if maybe they found a new, like, rejuvenated speed. So I'm not sure that Gagnon got slower. I think somehow just the leaders have found something here and kind of picked it up a little bit. And they're doing pretty well here coming through the track. Well, here we are just now almost at the halfway point. So I would think for most drivers, Evan, pit road visits could only probably be 2 or 3 laps away.
Yeah, they are inside of the phrase, and now maybe a quick bobble and an opportunity there is Ted Lowendick. Off of turn number 1, that truck got loose after he got it on the curbs, fishtailed it, hangs on to it, thought maybe that would have been the opening that Nathan Deering was looking for. And listen, we've said a lot about Bogue, we've said a lot about Lowendick. Here's his onboard. Again, on the throttle was fine, but it just took a while for the suspension of that truck to sit down. Wonder we haven't talked a ton about is Nathan Deering. He is just as fast as these other 2 drivers, so I think he deserves a tip of the cap. That 5 machine is in contention for this win, and he is all over these guys right now, maybe smelling blood in the water as he tries to put the pressure and finish the move on the 13.
We had to think that was probably a tale of 2 emotions for Nathan Deering a moment ago, because at first when he saw Lowendick start to get a little loose, he had to get excited. And then when he realized it was going to slow him up in the process, it probably killed some of the fun for Nathan in that moment. Look at that room, by the way. You got first off a well-made bed, something you don't always see in sim racing. Looks like he's got some kind of a side panel maybe from the 48 there on his right, my left. He's got a Sports Illustrated jumbo cover behind him. It's a pretty cool setup there. Whoa, look at his hands,
too. He is working hard, and side by side they go in the run up the front straightaway. Lowendick, momentum in his favor, clear, and now slices down to the inside to protect the crossover underneath. So Nathan Deering going to go wide into the corner, try to carry some speed on exit. He does a great job of doing that. Problem is, next turn was a right-hander, and it just parked him on the bumper of the 13 of Lowendick. Be interested to watch as these 2 cars continue to fight. If they keep going side by side, you would expect that will give an advantage to Reese Bogue, who I'm sure would love to see these 2 deal with second place and let him skirt out a little bit to the race lead.
By the way, if you want to see how tough of a night Nathan Deering has had, look at just the front of the wheelbase, right at the bottom of the camera shot. You can kind of see it wobble around. That's how much force feedback I believe is going into that wheelbase and that wheel. You can see that wheelbase is kind of wobbling. That's the vibrations moving that casing up and down. So, you see he's caught the curb there and now going to fall back a little bit. But you can see that there. But a great job by Deering. Kept calm there, kept the hands pretty steady, and we'll get back in the gas here and try and catch Lowendick. Oh, he lost it around again almost.
These things are not driving nice after 19 laps of action. And we are now officially past the halfway point. Again, we knew that the fuel number far exceeded the halfway point in this race. These drivers may still be able to go up to another 12 laps or so. The sim estimates that there's about 17 laps to go, but it doesn't mean they're going to want to do it, and this is not a surprise. Lowendick was really starting to struggle with the handling, and he is going to be the first of the big race leaders to come down for pit service. He's not the only one in. Matt Gagnon follows him down pit road. They will go for fuel and tires, and we'll have about a minute and change to watch these stops and then see if we get a response from Reese Bogue.
Yeah, and what I like about this for both Gagnon and for Lowendick is they're going to get some clean track, some fresh track, some open track to race on when these pit stops are done. Both of them down pit road here. Also, Nicholas Schwartz has come down pit road. And so 3 drivers came in this time by. And I was not surprised here because, you know, now you've raced basically 30 minutes. You know what to expect out of the truck. You know how the tires wear. So now the next 30 minutes should almost be predictable here. And again, there's Lowendick coming out, Gagnon right behind him. So almost equal times on pit road. In fact, their pit road time in total, line to line, 39 seconds for both of them, Evan. Almost identical.
It was really impressive stuff through that delta. Both of those trucks are off. So far, they are the only 2 drivers from the front of the field who have pitted for scheduled service. The other trucks, Nick Hunter and Zach Panzarella, did so from well back in traffic. So now decision time for the 4 Reese Bogue as he comes through the final few sets of corners. Does he respond, or does he maybe stick to a predetermined strategy that he had and continue running out there on the old tires? Pit road entry comes up on the left-hand side. No surprise, he will respond. Aggressive drive on pit road. And then he actually has an opportunity there. He has to slow down to about 45 miles an hour, Derek, to get through the corner. But the pit road cone then, you see those yellow cones, not for a couple hundred more feet up. He actually accelerated out of that turn, got back up to about 60 miles an hour, then slows it down. Pit road speed is 40. He is followed on pit road by Richard Regan Jr. So now we'll be able to watch the top 4 trucks have come down pit road. Nathan Deering still and Bradley Hawley, big names that have yet to pit. But now let's watch as Lowendick cycles the racetrack. Where will he blend out on the racing surface with the true trucks that were just now on pit road?
Yeah, there's Lowendick now coming up the hill here. He's now going to head into turn 1. This is where Reese Bogue is. They're almost identical spots. You can see right there, Lowendick's going to pull pretty far ahead. I think get it wide in the corner. But yep, there's the gap now. Now it's Lowendick who has the lead here. Did a great job with the overcut. And it's going to pass on by. Look at that. That's a big gap. That's almost a second. That might be the biggest gap we've seen all day for the lead.
And that's all it took was 1 lap for Ted Lowendick to go for the undercut, to pit first, to get the fresher tires sooner, immediately put down a fast lap when everybody else is still running at about 2 seconds, maybe a little bit shy of that off of their optimal lap times. And that's what has gotten Ted Lowendick the position. And again, we saw an early pass for the race lead for the driver who started this race in second, Reese Bogue. And then after that, they were pretty stagnant up front. That may be enough to win this race. We'll see. Now you question, what is Nathan Deering going to do in the 5? Well, he is down pit road now, so he did not pit on the first trip down or the second, but 3 laps later, he's in. You would expect, since the undercut works so good for Lowendick, I would think the 5 truck's probably going to lose more spots here and might cycle out maybe 3rd, 4th, or 5th.
Yeah, that's a great question to ask and see what's going to happen here. The question I have is about Bradley Hawley, Daniel Knight, Jeff Evans, and Mark Kalin. They're the drivers up front who've yet to pit. What I'm wondering, Evan, is anyone going to be brave enough to maybe try just to run this thing dry, not take tires, and just do that short pit stop for gas only? You might lose some time on track with the pit stop time, or with the lap times, pardon me, but I wonder if you make it back on the pit delta, or if it's worth it, because that's just what comes to mind. Sometimes you have to make a big swing at this. If you're Bradley Hawley, you started at the back. I mean, right now he's up 19 spots. He'll obviously lose some of those if or when he pits. But I just wonder if he's going to try something different, or if he's just waiting to pit until pit road's empty, or what may be going through his head.
Certainly could be the case. as Nathan Deering has cycled back out and onto the racetrack, and he has indeed ended up behind Lowendick, Bogue, and Gagnon. Did stay ahead of Richard Regan and Dustin Baumgartner, but it'll be a net loss. So it seems like the decision to come down pit road sooner rather than later has been the beneficial one. And that puts, to your point, of maybe somebody trying to stay out and go the distance, the battle right here for second, third, and fourth are all trucks who still need to come down pit road. Your race leader, Bradley Hawley, hasn't pitted. Neither has Knight, Evans, or Kalen, who we're looking at right now. There's a couple other trucks sprinkled out throughout the field, but this is kind of it for the big players in this race who have yet to come down. And as they're kind of fighting for position, I would want to get down pit road and get away from all these other trucks. Hawley's going to come in from P1, but these three maybe having enough fun, continue to run around each other for at least one more time.
And I wonder, too, I mean, the three up front, Knight, Evans, and Kane, are all veterans of this league. And what I wonder in my head is if they're better at tire saving. Because there was a point until 2 seasons ago now, Evan, where these races were 45 minutes instead of an hour. And in that case, a lot of times at COTA, you didn't need to pit because you could just make it on, gas and tires the whole way through. So you had to learn how to really conserve those tires and how to make them work for you. So as these three, they're not going to make it on gas. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm just wondering if they're good enough at saving tires that maybe they can justify doing gas only. So let's take a look at lap time comparisons, by the way. Last time by Daniel Knight, a 142.5. Ted Lowendick, a 139.3. So, I mean, it would make sense Lowendick will pass on by here, but sometimes you have to try something different and see how it works out for you.
And especially if the difference is, maybe not a contention for the race lead, but if I'm looking at a 6th, 7th, 8th place spot, what do I do to go off strategy to maybe improve? Especially when the field gets spread out like this, not all trucks are as tight as these three are. In what has become, the battle for the net race lead and for the trucks who have yet to come down pit road in the case of the 62 with Kalen. The battle for the active lead is there's a spin for the 171. Nick Schwartz, a lap ago, gets it righted, but that's going to heat up the tires and make things suboptimal for Schwartz, who just pitted. So you don't want to put a bunch of heat into those tires right away. So he's going to need a couple of laps to get those things back down to a comfortable temperature. But if you end up 7, 6, 8 seconds, whatever, behind the next driver up in line, that may be an indication or an opportunity where you may be willing to gamble a little bit more with your strategy, because there's a margin for error where, hey, this could either work out for me and gain me a spot, or if I lose something, I'm not really at risk of losing a spot. I am just surprised that these three want to keep fighting, which leads into your point you made earlier, Derek, that maybe they want to run this thing as long as they can and go for the splash. Because there is no argument that three trucks running this close together and fighting with each other are going to be running slower lap times, maybe not by a wide margin, but you see the mistake there for Daniel Knight, the 17, blew the entry there. Probably looking in the mirror. They're only hurting themselves by running into pack here. Kalen going to look to the inside of Evans.
Yeah, Kalen's going to try to make the pass here, and will he make it? I don't know. Maybe not. I thought first he was going to have it, but now it's going to be an advantage to Evans on the inside here for the right-hander. And let's see if they make contact. I don't think so. And I'll keep going on this big right-hander we talked about earlier. Something that I think also is probably worth talking about, too. These are three drivers, Evan, right there at the front, as we see Dalton Geyer going around again. But those drivers up front, Knight, Evans, and Kalen, they are not in contention to run for a points title. So as we get to the penultimate race for the PRL Truck Series, why not go for the win? Why not swing big here, right? What do you have to lose? You see Dalton Geyer lose it there in the corner. Brett Adams gets around, a couple others, where he gets it moved. But if you're someone who's out of the points title, you know it's the penultimate race, only a couple races left to maybe make a mark and get one more win, or your first win, or what have you in this series. Why not swing for the fences at a road course and see what you can pull off?
Might as well go for it, and that may be indeed the mentality that a lot of the trucks who have continued to stay out and yet to come down pit road are thinking about. The battle for P6 is Matt Gagnon and Nathan Deering. Remember, Deering was one of the last trucks to pit of your leaders, and therefore lost a lot of ground. He's been trying to chase down the 14 of Gagnon. This is for position. If there is not some strategy call that takes those top three trucks who have yet to pit and puts them in a spot to contend for the win, which, again, they could have enough fuel to go to the end of this race. I think they're going to get caught by everybody anyways. This battle for P6 this is going to turn into a battle for third. So pretty important stuff, as now you see Ted Lowendick is catching those top three who have yet to pit. This will be for position as he catches up to Kalen in third.
Now the question is, can Lowendick keep patient, right? He has way better tires. He has way better lap times than these front drivers. Last time by Lowendick, a 139.346. Kalen, 143.0, 143.2, 142.3 for your top cars, trucks ahead of him. So now Lowendick, maybe the biggest challenge all day, which is being patient and realizing where he needs to make a move, realizing when to get on the gas, not running over someone. Oh boy, Mark Kalen, and also not doing something. He probably would have preferred to have used Mark Kalen or someone as kind of a moving pick to keep Reese Bogue off his tail.
And I think he would have preferred these trucks pitted before they caught to him, because here's an opportunity for Reese Bogue to get in on the conversation. The 4 gets alongside the 13, and it's a battle for third that will be a battle for the net race lead. Bogue on the inside, Lowendick on the outside. Hard break for the 4 truck, and the 4 machine of Reese Bogue goes on through with a pass made on Lowendick, who got checked up in traffic, and the 4 car pounced on it.
Well, I'll tell you what, for a driver like Reese Bogue, who's had some moments this season that haven't been great and has had some bad luck, this obviously right now is the highlight of this season for Reese Bogue, out here leading at COTA and doing a great job at it, all things considered. Oh, went way wide to chicane there, and my goodness, he sort of checked up Ted Lowendick there, just because Lowendick would have ran him over had Lowendick not lifted. But that was a wild ride to that chicane.
And he almost risked all of it. Let's take a second look. We know this chicane, see wide entry by the 4 truck. He's looking to cut this thing, but that 4's got to get over to not cut the corner and receive a penalty. And that was a high-speed game of chicken for Ted Lowendick and company. Now, Reese Bogue is not in the clear. He was able to get to Lowendick and make the pass because Ted caught these trucks, which are not lappers. They still need a pit. It's for position. But he caught them, couldn't do it expeditiously, and got caught with the 4 machine on him. Now, Reese Bogue has to do that same challenge. He has to pass Jeff Evans. He has to pass Daniel Knight, and he has to do it without allowing Ted Lowendick to catch back up to him. Took a bit of work there in 16 and 17, but Reese Bogue is able to get by Evans. That puts him into P2, as you see, a connection issue there for Ted Lowendick, which could really hurt his opportunity here of trying to make a pass.
Yeah, it could not only hurt his opportunity, it hurt the trucks behind him who were trying to kind of predict where to go, but now riding on the back end of Jeff Evans as we're watching Ted Lowendick from the back, and Lowendick's going to quickly and easily make the pass here in this right-hander, and we'll clear him and move ahead here up into essentially P2 for the moment, P3 until Daniel Knight pits.
Still waiting on Knight, Evans, Kalen up front to pit, Dunn, Evans, Lane, and Hunter. Other trucks in the pack. Looks like Toomer the only other one. Drivers who have yet to come down pit road. But Reese Bogue has now got his set sight on one final truck, and that is if he can get by Daniel Knight. Get some clean racetrack to the inside. 17's not going to roll over, though. That double apexer right-hander, perfect timing for Reese Bogue to get on through. Lowendick's going to have to deal with the 17, who gets sideways there as they come off of the corner. Not enough to get through, though, and that may have been the race-winning pass for the 4 of Reese Bogue. Not in the literal sense. Yes, he literally passed Daniel Knight to go to P1, but the execution and the timing to get that job done, and that little bit longer that it took Ted Lowendick to get through means that now Reese Bogue's got a 1.3 second advantage to play with into the final 15 minutes.
Yeah, that may be the move right there. So we'll see if Lowendick can catch back up. Here's Nathan Deering, by the way. He has pitted, so he's just kind of waiting to take over 3 spots here. He'll likely be P3 when all is said and done, because Kalen, Evans, and Knight ahead of him are yet to pit here. I suspect we'll see them pit within the next 4 to 5 minutes. And just go ahead and put gas only in that machine and see what they can make of it here. Deering doing a great job keeping it off of the rumble strips, and sometimes in the trucks, that's the most important part of road course racing. I know sometimes you have to use the rumble strips. That is the quote-unquote line, if you will. But in these vehicles, the more you can keep them on the track and you don't unsettle the truck or the suspension or what have you by hitting those bumps, the better the truck will perform. By the way, can I just say, we've watched them go through that little chicane all night long there where you cut the S's. That is treacherous, how they're just getting that so close every time to getting those vehicles off the ground.
Yeah, there are more mistakes there than maybe anywhere else on the racetrack, with the exception of turn number 1. And they haven't all been, trucks spinning out of control, but that first left-hand turn into what we'll call the shortcut, they're classifying that as turn number 6 on this layout, has really been what has upset people, because it's setting a lot of trucks misaligned with the next turn, and it's really opened up opportunities for drivers to make some moves. Still 17 trucks on the lead lap in this race. Again, there's been a little bit of attrition. Cowgill, Dewey, Loving still being shown as the only drivers who have not made it to the scheduled distance in this one. Their nights have come to an end early. And now that the strategy has played itself out, turns into a waiting game. Jeff Evans down pit road in the 51 truck, so take him off the board as he will make his final stop of the night. Let's see, was he able to save enough fuel and I guess run late enough and run it out of enough fuel to forego the tires? It is. Yep. Splash and go. We'll see how this pays out for him.
Yeah, we'll see if at some point the tires wear off or wear evenly, I guess, between those who pitted and took tires and those who did not, and what that looks like. By the way, we can add Brett Adams now to the list of drivers who have went ahead and retired early. So I see 5 drivers who will not finish the race this evening as of this moment. 12 minutes left here. Looking at the fight towards the front, this is Daniel Knight and Nathan Deering, 3rd and 4th on the track. One of those drivers teamed up with Whataback Racing, or at least in some partner form. And then, of course, you got Nathan Deering, part of RaceSpotTV Motorsport, or Regenboog Motorsports, pardon me, there in P4. You know what I'm surprised about overall, Evan? P7, Richard Regan Jr. started off really strong, really drove through the field pretty quickly, pretty early. And since then, it just kind of is where he is. I'm a little surprised. I mean, he'll gain 1, maybe 2 more spots when Kalen and Knight pit. But based upon the way that Regan started, I was kind of convinced he might have been able to kind of do what Bradley Holly was doing and charge all the way through this field.
Yeah, it was looking impressive for him and Holly. They both got to pretty much where they're running right now pretty quickly. And I think the thing that's going to hurt them in the end is not the positions, it's going to be the deltas, right? I mean, they started, both of them, without qualifying, had to drive through the field, and by the time they got to where they are now, is that 17 and Knight is in, so is the 62 of Kalen. So that bookends, I should say, the pit service for the trucks up front. Still trucks in the pack that have to pit, but those ones up front that we were following are done. By the time they got here, Derek, they were 8 seconds off of the leader. So they may have, had 8 seconds between all the positions they had to catch up until that point. But unless you've got an incredible machine that if you qualified, you were going to beat the field by a half a lap, you're not making up 8 seconds on the leader, right? I think it's just that's the damage done by not being able to qualify. They made up spots, that's great, but the time, and as these trucks spread it apart, that's, I think, what really kind of ended the hopes of a fantastic finish for the likes of Regan and Holly. Certainly could have been worse. I think certainly could have been better. And if you look at Ted Lowendick, yeah, he wants to win this race, but you got to be feeling good with Holly back here in 8th.
Yeah, doing a pretty good job here. Holly now moving up to, I think, P6 on the board for the last 2 pitting, but still, that's a 4-spot difference when you're tied in points. And, considering Ted Lowendick got the point for taking the taking the pole tonight, that'd be a little bit of help as well here. So, lots going on. By the way, Austin Hunter, black flag. I'm not sure this is going to be for incident points. Something I can think it would be for as of this moment, unless he was caught speeding on pit roads. He just pitted on lap 30. So, possibly to do with the pit road speed or exits. But, yep, Austin Hunter will have that black flag. Just caught that out of the corner of my eye.
About that time in the race where those penalties for drivers who are close on the number may start clocking in again with how sensitive this racetrack is to those off-track penalties. You can't average more than about a point every other lap. If you want to get through this one without getting penalized, we knew it was going to happen to some. I may be impressed that it hasn't happened to more, just given how tricky this race is. But again, drivers are very acutely aware of what that penalty is and seem to have been respecting those boundaries for the most part, trying to avoid that outlook. I said that Lowendick wants to win this race, but he's happy knowing that he's outrunning the driver who he came into tonight in a championship tie with. That's Holly back in 6th, but this thing is not done yet. Reese Bogue was not that long ago more than a 2.5 seconds out to the race lead, and now Ted Lowendick only looking at a 2.5 truck length difference with about 5 laps to go this time by. It is game on in the battle for the race win.
Yeah, that Nerd's Gummy Cluster Machine is really trying hard to at least keep up with Reese Bogue. He's probably only going to get one major shot at the pass, I would think, here. So he's going to bide his time and make sure that the moment is correct when he kind of dives in, or whatever he decides to do to make the pass will come up the long front straight here. The only big straight left on this circuit. Now it's the uphill left-hander. This will really, as we said, mess with the truck. It's sort of an uphill, downhill shape. You're going to cross the curb there. Now you get your downhill. It's a very, very difficult corner. In fact, I think what we kind of miss in our camera sometimes, Evan, especially in the start of a race, that's a blind corner. When you take that corner and you're going up over the hill, you have no idea what's waiting for you on the other side.
Especially, I know that the, view distance, or, the visibility here in the fog isn't actually that extreme that you can't see, what's happening a couple hundred feet ahead of you, but you come over a blind corner, that little bit of a haze, especially if you're lined up behind a truck and you're trying to look through the windshield, right through the back window of that truck to see what's going on in front of you. The haze and the fog could play a little bit of a factor as well, but that's what this track has that Chicago didn't. We did see elevation change on the streets of Chicago. I think that final run up over the tracks to the right-hander that leads you to the front straightaway, where you get some of those same I don't want to call them field of view challenges, right? But those blind spots. But it's very different than here at COTA, where the elevation change here is dictated by the terrain. Most things at the Chicago track, of course, dictated artificially. As you see a spin for the 36 truck there. Again, that was Sam Smeltzer with another issue. Here we go, though. This 13 mission of Ted Lowendick has been lining it up, and he is putting the pressure on the 4 of Reese Bogue now. Good exit for the 4 that time to build the gap up a little bit. There was a lap truck in front that I thought might have been a factor, but they get out of the way. Yeah, Mike Summers went ahead and pulled over, decided he did not want to be a factor in this battle. And look at that big run that Lowendick got there. He was able to kind of really break into this corner hard and catch up all that time right there. Boy, oh boy, I'm impressed by Reese Bogue here. He's really put on a clinic almost all race long up at the front. He's doing a great job, making that truck wide, making it hard to pass. He's gotten around Lowendick even after the undercut, came back through the field and passed Lowendick again. So I'm really, really impressed by Reese Bogue tonight. He has been putting on a good show, and again has taken advantage of the fact that if Lowendick's this close, it's going to be hard for him to dig out and get into a championship possible scenario, but especially when you consider the DNS at round number 6, which burns the drop week for him. But it's been an impressive run, and I think certainly has a good look. If maybe a P2 is a peak for him in the Drivers' Championship, that's Doug Evans, who comes down pit road. Believe it or not, we are still not done with the pit service, as Evans was too fast into pit road, and he'll have to serve a penalty. Colton Lane has also yet to pit in this race, and we are inside of 5 minutes to go to the end of it. So certainly, I can see to where you mentioned 45 minute long timed races. You can see drivers go the distance here at a place like COTA. Is there any chance that Colton Lane could go the distance? I want to keep a half eye on the 60 just for curiosity's sake. Seems extremely unlikely that he can squeeze an extra 3.5 laps out of this thing. Those drivers up front now looking at 3 laps to go. The fog getting denser and denser as we get into the late afternoon here in Austin. Yeah, that would be quite the accomplishment, by the way, for our last week's winner, Colton Lane. If he could come back and run a full race without stopping, that would be pretty impressive. But here's Nathan Deering. You see his webcam again. He's trying to hold off
team owner, I believe. No, that's Matt Gagnon behind him, I think, actually, in the 14. I thought it was Regan, but it's Matt Gagnon. Is that Matt Gagnon now a lap down? What? I'm confused by the scoring pylon.
No, battle for
position. I
position.
can't read.
He's in
Third, fourth. Never mind. I can't read what I'm. Never mind.
It's the fog. Blame the fog.
It's the fog. It's the fog. Yeah. Wow. So and then they got their team owner Richard Regan behind him. That's what I was trying to go for in P5. So good run here. There's Matt Gagnon. That's those goggles. Are those like skiing goggles? What is he wearing there? That's so. Is it like a cyberpunk aesthetic he's going for?
It's given the old, they're probably ski goggles, but it's kind of given the old, racing bubble goggles, Dale Earnhardt goggles from back in the day. And I am, unfortunately, tasked with reporting that Colton Lane has had to come down pit road. He only spent 2.8 seconds in the box. It was literally a splash of fuel, but he was not able to pull it off and make it all the way to the end on the fuel into which he started. But you can see working hard is Reese Bogue there. Lowendick kind of squirrely under braking. And now all of a sudden, with maybe 2 laps to go in this race, these two trucks with the biggest gap between them that we've seen in some time.
But before we move on from that webcam, can I just ask you if you were seeing the movie Cannonball Run? Is that what those goggles give me pure Cannonball Run feelings? I don't know if you've ever seen that, but that's what I get when I see those goggles on Matt Gagnon. But coming back here, Reese Bogue, maybe with the biggest, or one of the biggest leads all night. Got a big gap there. It's only a second, but it looks pretty massive just because of these corners and how wide they are and how long they are. But Lowendick's probably going to get up here again, going to time it. And as I said, he'll get one shot of this, Evan. Wherever it's going to be, I would predict, well, I would like to say it's going to be turn 1, but I don't think he's going to get there in time. We'll see if the timer runs out in time. They're at 2 minutes right here. I don't know if they're going to get around here and take another lap or if they'll see the white flag from Barney this time.
It'll be, I think, one more lap to go with the white flag this time around. But it may be tight on the timer. We'll have to keep an eye. Again, drivers running lap times in the 140 range. You can see the clock's going to get below that now. So I think the sim will know not enough time to do an additional lap. It should be 1 lap to go this time by. There is some traffic up the road. Colton Lane, who just pitted, as well as it looks like Thomas Sink. Those trucks in turns 16 and 17. So if the leaders catch them, they may need to yield, but that's a good view off of the front for Reese Bogue, and that is pretty clean racetrack. An advantage that sits at 1.2 seconds. Is there anything that Ted Lowendick can do? White flag in the air. One more trip around at COTA.
At this point, Evan, it really feels like, short of Reese Bogue, maybe bobbling the truck somewhere, it feels like this is right now is Reese Bogue's race to lose. Lowendick maybe has burned up the equipment and has made the runs he had. So I think as long as Reese Bogue can kind of breathe calmly, stay cool-headed, he'll likely come away with the victory here.
And for Reese Bogue, started this race in the number 2 spot, but it was a lap number 1 pass as they went up the hill into turn 1 to make the move on the man that's now chasing him down, Ted Lowendick. And since then, the benefit has just swung in favor of this 4. He was able to be defensive, and then I think a real critical moment is when they made the green flag pit cycle, pass for position, back further in traffic. That's with the number 84 at James Morgan and company as they come off of turn number 1 for 16th and 17th is when Bogue pitted first. And it gave him the leapfrog on everybody else. The likes of Lowendick and others maintained the track position and never looked back. And for Reese Bogue, who came into tonight 3rd in the driver's standings, was one of the highest running drivers in the points without a trip to victory lane. Well, that stat can stand no longer. Left hand, turn number 16. Clean racetrack out in front. The gap steady at a 2 2/10 back to Ted Lowendick. And Reese Bogue, first win of 2025, victorious here at COTA. Lowendick across the stripe. He'll be scored in 2nd. Nathan Deering 3rd, but maybe a scoring loop with Matt Gagnon. We'll wait to see for sure. Looks like Deering will be scored in the number 3 spot. And Reese Bogue wasting no time. The celebration is on up there in front of the fans in turn 1.
Yeah, it's a great spot to do it for Reese Bogue, representing Regan Bogue Motorsports. And so it's going to be a first for Bogue, fifth for Regan, so and Deering in third. So it's great run. If they were trying to make a last-ditch run at those points, that's how you do it. 1:35 is, my goodness, was that Jeff Evans that just said, hey, congrats, in his own little way?
I've heard of a congratulatory bump. That was a little bit more than that. Blame the fog. Blame the fog. There's the look from high above in turn number 1 as maybe some drivers have some burnouts to celebrate just making it through this one. We all know in a race, in a series like this, a lot of these drivers consider themselves experts on the ovals, maybe not for this type of road course racing, but a lot of them showed a lot of grit. 14 trucks of the 29 who started this race will finish on the lead lap. That's an impressive stat. A vast majority of the trucks as well made it the full distance. So all in all, some chaos here and there, but a good showing from everybody. Let's take a look at your full race results, and what a night for Regan Bogue Motorsports. First, third, and fifth. It's highlighted by the first win of the season for Reese Bogue. It is an all Toyota top 5 with Lowendick in second. That's going to be big for him in terms of building a gap in the championship. Nathan Deering third, Matt Gagnon fourth, and Richard Regan Jr. in fifth. Some late passes for Regan and Hawley, so that's a big couple of points for the 184. He comes home P6. He will lose ground to Lowendick with 1 race to go to settle the championship, but it may be a smaller gap than it could have been. He finishes ahead of Evans, Knight, Kalen, and Bumgarner, your top 10.
Moving back into P11, that's Nicholas Schwartz, Jacob Dunn, Thomas Sink, and Colton Lane back through 14th. Those are the last cars on the lead lap. 1 lap down, Doug Evans, James Morgan, Alex Hillman, Austin Hunter, Dalton Geyer, and Sam Smeltzer back through P20.
And you continue on through. Stacey Hunter, last driver to finish 1 lap down in this race. Nicholas Hunter, Mike Toomer Jr., Zach Panzarella, Brett Adams, all on track by the end of this race. And then Tom Massey, Patrick Cowgill, Kyle Dewey, and Steve Loving, the drivers who do not make it to the full race end. Andrew Sharp also did take a time in qualifying, did not compete in this race, so he will not show up on the results. He would have been the 30th truck should he have had the opportunity to participate. Well, Reese Bogue is our race winner. He is standing by with us now. Let's go trackside to COTA Victory Lane. Reese Bogue has got his first win of 2025. Reese, congratulations on this one. You led the most laps, but I don't know if you really had a chance to kind of take deep breaths at any point. Seemed like it was pretty competitive up front all night.
Yeah, you know, it was real crazy there. I know Teddy's real good, and I'm not a great road course racer, you know, so I like road course, but I'm not really great at it. So I felt tonight I was going to be decent, but the lap and qualifying, I don't know where that come from. And then same thing there with speed in the race. I have no idea where that came from. I was surprised I was able to hang up there, and yeah, you know, just pressure was on with Teddy the whole time. I was trying to keep a consistent gap. I slipped a couple times, but you'll have that in these high pressure moments. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I worked hard for that one. I've worked hard for a while on getting one of these with this field, so feels real good.
How important was it? It seemed like you and Ted and a lot of the other trucks who were up there up front seemed to be pretty even. That pass, lap 1, turn 1, how critical was that maybe to kind of control things a little bit?
Yeah, I feel it was real critical. I honestly didn't even plan to get a start like that. I really just, the way the green fell is weird. Like he spun tires or something. So having a good jump into turn 1 and being able to get ahead of him helped a lot. Just, I'm not gonna say clean air. I mean, maybe it had a little factor, but just controlling the race and the pace and kind of what I wanted everybody to do. And as far as it's like follow the leader, you know, kind of go off the pace of the leader. So that it was definitely crucial. And then we had that pit stop there. I thought he was gonna undercut me, and he did. And then like, oh man, now I gotta get back. So I had to work a little harder than I wanted to right there after the pit cycle. But you know, it's all good, and that just shows you how important track position is.
Well, you say that you don't consider yourself great at these road courses, but it was a good result, a solid finish when we did the Chicago Street Race a little bit earlier. Is there anything about COTA though that you can point to that made you more comfortable compared to Chicago that obviously put you in a position to be able to win this thing?
Man, it's really hard to tell. This has never been my strong suit. I kind of always struggle here. I really think my best finish here was like 7th in PRL, and I don't really ever run a lot of laps here. Really, just PRL does go here. Maybe the occasional official race or hosted race, but not a lot. I mean, I probably have under 200 laps on this track in total. So, it I don't have one thing to point to, but I could tell I was a little bit better than at least Teddy there in the high speed section, like at the top of the hill, first sector, and then slow speed they were getting to me, which was something to keep an eye on. But in the end, a lot of fun, and definitely learned a lot about how these trucks run on a road course.
One more race to go this season. Maybe an opportunity to get as high as that number 2 spot in the championship. What's going to be the outlook as we head to Phoenix next week?
Oh man, just honestly try to win again. I guess it's kind of a short track, I guess is the way to call it. So I like short track stuff. I've grew up in real life doing that. So we'll see how that goes. I'm not really great at Phoenix either, but that's kind of what I was thinking tonight. So maybe if we have another run like I did tonight, we'll be good to go next week and hopefully get another win.
We appreciate you giving us some time before we let you get out there and celebrate. Reese, anybody else you want to say hi to?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Ryan Newman and Associates. I want to give a shout out to Marconi Setup Shop, Neonism, Stin Analyzer, everybody on the Regenbogen Motorsports team that did a great job this season and tonight. Thank you guys for putting this on, and see you guys next week.
Congratulations, Reese, again on the victory, and best of luck. Hopefully, another good result for you guys to close out the season when we catch you next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you guys very much.
He's your race winner tonight from Circuit of the Americas. It's Reese Bogue, race win number 1 of the season, as he becomes what is the 6th different race winner in 8 starts this season. Well, it was a P2 finish for Ted Lowendick. That is a good result for the man who will be leading the championship with a race to go. Derek Watson's with him.
Well, Ted, P2 tonight. Obviously, you got a few point gap on Brad between getting the pole. I think you both led some laps, so that'll kind of wash, but you finished 4 spots ahead of him, so you have a minimal gap going next week into Phoenix. How does that feel?
I mean, every point you have to give to someone is nice. It means you don't have to be perfect, but I don't know. We're going to approach it as if we need to win it, so that way we can just take all the questions out of it.
Sort of interesting to think that the driver who was the overall year-long champion for the Pro Series last year, you may be the last PRL champion in the trucks. Has that thought set in yet?
I was like, ooh, that'd be a cool little title to have. I don't know. I've been in the PRL for 7-8 years. I don't know. It's been a while. And the announcement made me pretty sad. I don't know what my dad's gonna do on Wednesday nights now, but we'll see. So
don't click the YouTube link, Dad. It won't be here anymore.
Right.
So talk to me a little about the track. Obviously, the shorter layout, not the big straightaways. Does that make it so much harder to pass?
Yeah, I got the same thing happened to me at whatever was it, Chicago, where I got on pole and I took it really easy into turn 1 because I don't want to, lock up and slide out and take the person out that's out to the right, and because they're on the outside, they get back on throttle a little bit better. So lost the lead, wasn't able to control it from there, and then caught the strategy at the wrong time and caught Mark and them right there, and I just went back and watched. I should have blocked the inside. I didn't think Reese was going to make the move, so he caught me napping there. Didn't think he was close enough. So, but I mean, Reese drove a heck of a race. It was fun trying to figure out how to get around him. So, but yeah, congrats to him. That was a heck of a race.
All right, Ted. Well, my last question. We come into Phoenix next week, and we know by now you're an experienced oval driver. It's hard to think we would have said that, a year and a half ago maybe, but here you are. So are you excited for Phoenix? Is this the track you want to be at to try to win a title?
it's not my preferred track, but there's definitely it's above other tracks. We'll go ahead and say that.
Fair enough. Well, I'm looking forward to see if we can get a championship shoey in 1 week time. Good luck, and we'll see you then.
Me too. Thanks, guys. Have a good evening.
All right, that's Ted Lowendick finishing at P2 in the number 13 truck. We'll now bring in the number 5 and Nathan Deering. Nathan, a heck of a run here tonight. That, I'm pretty sure, is your best run of the season by far.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had a pretty rough season, honestly. So I had this race circled on my schedule for a long time. Being a road guy, I was really looking forward to this one. I missed Chicago, so yeah, I came in prep for this one and really brought it to these guys.
Had a great night with your teammates, Matt Gagnon, Richard Regan, Reese Bogue, all up there running strong. So a very, very solid night for RBM.
Yeah, overall it was awesome. It was awesome fighting Matt there at the end. I was really struggling on that second set of tires. I was really sliding around, I think, after I got through that lap traffic. So Matt was kind of catching me there towards the end. But yeah, overall it was an awesome battle. I kind of got off first with Reese and Ted there after that pit stop. I think I ran into some lap traffic, and that kind of slowed me down a bit. So overall, super happy with this result. I know NASCAR doesn't really count for podiums, but for me, this counts.
I think it should count. I
It
think
should count.
a lot. Yeah, absolutely. So I have to ask, where did you get this like extra large Sports Illustrated cover from?
Yeah, so my dad used to work at Hendrick Motorsports, and he got this printed after Dale Jr. won the 500. I think it was 2014, maybe. But he got this
4 or 14, so I think that's 14.
14. Yep, he got this printed, had it in his office, and then he retired in 2022 and passed it off to me. So it's a nice little relic of mine.
Awesome. Well, we finish off the PRL season, and apparently finish off PRL next week at Phoenix. What's your outlook for the race?
Just to finish, Phoenix isn't my favorite track. It's one of those weird short tracks that usually I'm really good under braking at some of the smaller tracks, but Phoenix is just a weird one for me. So just kind of going to go in there, run some laps, and hopefully get a top 10 there and just finish out the season strong because I've had a really rough season. So get a good team result at the end.
All right. Well, congrats on the P3 tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thank you guys, and I just want to say thank you for all the years here at PRL. It's been a blast. Been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, so thank you guys for the coverage. It's been awesome to watch all these years, so yeah, thank you.
I appreciate it. It's awesome to watch you guys do what you do. That's Nathan Deering, driver of the number 5 truck, and Evan, we come in next week to a finale race. It's something that you and I did back in not too long ago for RSR, and here we are now doing it for PRL. 1 week's time at Phoenix, the season finale, the PRL finale. Probably a lot of emotions next week.
Yeah, we already knew that there was going to be a championship on the line in that one, and to your point, maybe it means a little bit more. The fact that it'll be the last race, at least for now, in what has been the storied history here with the Precision Racing League, not only with this fixed truck series, but of course with all the other forms of discipline that they offer. And it's interesting, you heard the words for the man who's going to go in there on the defensive to try to defend for the championship, as it'll be Ted Lowendick's championship to lose, essentially. He said, Phoenix not my preferred choice, but it could be worse. And maybe that is a sentiment throughout the field, because it's not really a racetrack that a lot of drivers have circled as their number 1 favorite track, and one could argue that makes it a perfect place to settle a championship. Of course, NASCAR's been going there for the last couple of years, and you look back on, the other short tracks, really with the exception of Stafford, which won't race anything like Phoenix. We haven't had a challenge yet this season, Derek, at that kind of in-between, what I like to call a NASCAR short track, right? By any stretch of the imagination, it's not a small place, but in the world of NASCAR, it's a little bit tighter. Going to be tight confines racing. It's a flat track. It could get physical at times. There's 2, if not 3 drivers in contention for the championship. A whole lot of reasons to make sure you tune in and join us.
Yeah, I'm excited to have this race happen in 1 week's time. So here we are at the season finale, the PRL finale at Phoenix Raceway. Probably lots of beating, lots of banging, lots of emotions, and 1 champion left to be crowned.
And we hope that you join us for that one. Until then, though, that is it for us here tonight from Austin. On behalf of our entire team at RaceSpotTV, for everybody at the Precision Racing League, and for your broadcast team tonight. For our producer, Dustin Allis, for Derek Watson, and myself, Evan Pasoko, want to say thanks for tuning in, and we hope you join us in 1 week's time for the season finale with a championship on the line. That's coming at you on Wednesday, March the 5th. That race and every race of the Precision Racing League Truck Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Until next time, good night from COTA, and congratulations to Reese Bogue.